Hi, I'm Jackie Smith. I work for Geodynamic Systems as a GIS consultant. I also volunteer on the PODS committees, and I've been an active member of PODS since 2016, and I've served in a variety of roles. And right now, I am a T committee chair. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit about how to read the PODS poster. Okay, so here's the PODS conceptual model. It's also called the PODS poster, PODS diagram. So in order to understand this diagram, as it is a little overwhelming, there's a lot of information here on the screen when you see this. So I'm going to break this down a little bit today and help to explain how to read it. I'm going to I scroll down, I can see the whole thing. It's broken into sections. Now, these sections are based on how the POD 7 committee decided to categorize the Pipeline Open Data Standards data model. So they put things in pipeline hierarchy. They categorize things under assets, for example. They categorize things under locations. So as you read more into the model and you zoom in, you can see and understand what those sections say by reading the text in the gray boxes. Okay. So today I'm going to focus on reading the data model by doing kind of this case study of how to read the valve, which is a asset. It's a point asset specifically. So assets, points. And then I'm also going to talk about how to read a little bit of the pipeline hierarchy section. So I'm going to talk about how to understand and read the pipeline table. So hopefully that will help you. I'm going to start here, appropriately named, with the start here section. And this is going to give me all the information I need to know how to read the rest of the categories in the data model poster. Okay, so it's going to give me the highlights of what I'm looking at. It's going to give me a legend to see what I'm looking at throughout the data model. Really encourage you to print this out or read it if you're so inclined to understand more about how this works. But again, I'm going to give you a high level explanation now. I'm going to switch over to PowerPoint. All right, so now that we're back to the presentation, then everything I need to know about reading the PODS poster is in the starter section. It has the legend. It has abstract feature classes that explain the basically the basis of what everything else is in the model. So anything that's related to this ABT in the yellow is going to be an abstract table. Anything that has the ABF attached to it is an abstract feature, a point line or a polygon, and it's going to inherit or share all of these attributes. Same for all of these things on the right in blue. So anything that's attached to a pipeline feature is going to have all of these fields in the pipeline feature abstract class. So let me continue on. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about the ones that I've defined here with the red arrows. I'm going to talk about a related table situation. Similarly, talk about the related table connector that joins two objects and the abstract connector that joins two objects. And again, I'm going to talk more about this abstract feature. I'm going to talk about a valve, which is a point, rendered as a point in your pipeline database. And then I'm going to talk about these pipeline features, a network point, and a network polygon, and why those are important and why those are tied to specific objects in the model. So first, let's look at a valve. This is everything I need to know about the valve. Okay, so the valve is basically along the pipeline. It measures or transitions the pressure, right, from one piece of pipe to the next. And when I zoom into the pipe section or the valve section, I'm going to see the valve table circled in red. I also see in that assets point section that it's an asset point and that it has these it's connected to these features or objects on the left. So it's connected to the ABF, which is gray. So I'm going to go back to the start here section and I see, oh, okay, that's an abstract feature. It's also connected to the network point, the pipeline feature, and the asset. So if I go back to the start here section, I see, oh, okay, well, these are the attributes of those sections when I put it all together, and it'll make sense here in a little bit, hopefully. I also see that it has connections or relationships to these three things in the model. It has relationships to engineering and continuous network. It has relationships to the pipeline. It has relationships to a site. A site is like a compressor station or a plant, for example. So now let's put this all together. So basically, we're putting all the fields together, all the attributes together. So the final picture of what we see in the database is going to be this total listing of all of these things together. So I got from the poster sections, I got my, let me put my screen pointer on here. I've got my abstract feature. So the valve is a point, as I already said. So it's, it's going to have this little point icon. It's going to be rendered with all of these attributes. So you can see these attributes from the ABF here. It's going to have the attributes from the pipeline feature. So everything that is tied to the pipeline feature, as far as attributes go, is also going to be present in the valve table. So all these attributes. The network point is the next one. So anything that ties that point to our engineering and continuous station network, which are these fields that tell this is the meat of the model. So the measure of the valve is going to be in this area. And then there's also the asset attributes, and that those asset attributes are shared with every asset in that asset section. So the in-service date, the install date, the manufacture date, those are the things you care about for your TDC and for your record keeping. Those are the basics of every asset that you have. And so, of course, they're attached to the valve. And then you have all of the specific features or attributes of the valve itself. And so that's a longer list, right? But it's specific to the valve, your valve type, your valve function, your identifier of your valve. The things that are in bold here, anything in bold in the model means that it's required. So it's required by the database or the application. Anything that has a little d, that means that it's a drop down, it's a list, it's a domain, the code list, if you're familiar with previous versions of PODS. So there's different things you can pick. And PODS has put some defaults in there for you to pick in those lists. So it's very helpful. So let's see. So that's basically the valve. And I'm going to show you the valve in the actual geodatabase here in a sec. But I want to go on to the relationships of the valve. So this is what really makes your valve and related to the rest of your database, your objects in the system. So we're going to put this together. So the engineering station network and the continuous measure network are basically what makes our pipeline give it stationing and give it measure, how we find things on our pipeline system. It's like the basics of pipeline 101. It's how you find something on the pipeline. You need to know its measure, or you need to know its station. Station comes from engineering station network, and measure comes from continuous measure network. Some operators only use continuous measure, but in PODS, we let you do both. So we've got it tied to the network by a network route ID, which is a foreign key. So that FK throughout the model means a foreign key. So it means anytime you see that FK, it means it's tied to another object in the model. So derived CM route is your derived continuous measure. And then we have a pipeline ID. So the pipeline ID is an attribute that ties to the name of the pipe. So I don't want to have to dig and find the name of the pipe in some other table, I can just link to it really quick and find it here. Same with the site. So if its valve belongs to a compressor station, I can relate it that way with the site ID. I can also have a linear asset. So my valve can have a beginning and end. So it can be a linear asset. And that is why it has a pipeline segment ID. I can also relate my valve to a branch connect. So that's very helpful so that I can know that my valve and my branch connect are part of the same appurtenance. Okay, so that's what that looks like. All right. So now I'm going to talk about the pipeline hierarchy. Pipeline hierarchy section is pretty important, obviously, because I need to know who owns my pipeline, who operates my pipeline. I need to know the product in my pipeline, what's the primary product, things like that. Maybe I want to know the association to a compressor station, and that's where this site comes in here on the right. I can also tie the layout of a site, so the layout of the polygon of a compressor station or a plant, that facility, that yard, that fenced area. That can be a polygon. I can tie that as far as the boundary goes, and I can also have just a point location. So there's all these different ways to relate that. So don't worry about all that right now. But right today, I'm going to talk about the pipeline product, and the product relationships, and what that means, or how to read it in the model. So the pipeline inherits the fields of the abstract pipeline. It also connects relationship-wise to pipeline company, engineering, continuous measure network. Again, we see that. It also connects to the pipeline product. And the product actually is a foreign key to the pipeline product and the product. So might not may seem a little wonky there, but I'm going to explain a little bit about that here in a sec. Again, we go back to the start here section, and what I saw in my pipeline section, I saw this abstract table. So I know that I'm going to have the fields from my abstract table. I also know that I'm going to have a related table situation as well. So let's put it all together. So from the poster sections, I have the abstract tables fields, and then I have the pipeline fields below. And then when I put them all together, I'm just going to have a nice table that's going to include my table abstract fields. So these fields are in every single place where I see this ABT, this orange box on the model. I know that that association means that that object is going to have all these fields. From unique ID to last edited date, all these fields are going to be in each one of those objects that are connected to that orange box. So the pipeline attributes itself are going to be connected here. And so this gives it more specifics about the pipeline, who operates it by the operator company ID, and the status, for example, whether it's active, whether it's abandoned. This is where you store that information. It has LRS, has route. Those are just some statistics about linear referencing. And of course, the important part is the pipeline name. So that's required, right? You can also have the system type and the pipeline type. So putting the relationships together, putting it all together a little bit more, explaining that. So there's a relationship to the operator company. So a pipeline is operated or owned by a company. And so that's where the pipeline company table comes in. And you see it here on the right. So this is where I would put my name of the company and whether it was an operator or owner. And then the pipeline itself can be related to itself. So in PODS 7, there is a relationship called recursive relationship where you can associate a pipeline to itself. So you can have routes and you can have this kind of a series in a route situation by using that parent pipeline foreign key. And then, of course, seems like everything is related to the engineering and continuous measure network tables, and it's via that pipeline ID table. I'm sorry, that pipeline table. So the pipeline ID is also a foreign key in the continuous measure network and the engineering station network so that you can tie those networks of pipe back to a pipeline. And then, so you're storing all those attributes of the pipeline in a table. You're not storing it with the linear event itself, but you can join back and see it all together. Before I go to my my next part of the presentation, I just wanted to let you know that I got all of this information from the ArcGIS Data Dictionary. I augmented the poster by reviewing the dictionary, and this dictionary is available to you as a PODS member when you download the PODS 7 data model. So I wanted to show the data model in the database. And this is an Esri implementation of the PODS data model. This is the PODS 7 APR implementation. So this is my Arc Pro, an Esri Arc Pro, and I've got my PODS 702 geodatabase that I created. I downloaded from PODS. I joined PODS and I downloaded this feature class, our feature data set and database. And I followed the instructions to implement it. And then I loaded some data that I got from Esri, their sample data set. And I wanted to show you the valve and the pipeline table here so that you can see what it looks like in the Esri implementation. So when I look at my geodatabase on the right, I can see I have something called features. That's the data set. So a lot of my features are going to be within here. And I've already built an APR network or configuration here at the top. But what I want to show you is, all these objects are now listed in my feature data set. So if I scroll down, I'll see the valve. Okay, so I can add that to my map. So I added that. And if I want to see a valve, I can zoom into one I loaded and I can select it or identify it. And I can also look at the attribute table, which is down here. So I can recognize all of those objects that you saw in the PowerPoint here on the right. Come here, select, see the attributes. Well, of course, it's going to give me an error. All right. So that's errors since the manufacturer is not populated. So this is a good way to see the drop down of the manufacturers that come with PODS. So I can enter one of these manufacturers just to be in sync. And then I can see all these different attributes that I saw in the PowerPoint, right, in the poster. They're all together, one big happy table. And then I can come in here and using my Arc Pro capabilities, I can see that it has some relationships like I talked about in the PowerPoint. It has a relationship to branch connect, to pipe segment, pipeline, and site. So it knows automatically that it has those relationships. And then I can come in here and associate the objects to them this way. Then I have the pipeline table that I talked about, which is actually a standalone table when you add it to your Arc Pro. And then I can see it over here. And I've added 4 pipelines to this to match some other data that I had to input. And I can see that information in here as a table. And then I can populate, however I'd like to populate here when I do an edit. So, and I can see those attributes over here as well. Okay. And then once I look at my pipeline, I can see, oh, okay, those are those pipeline attributes that I saw on the poster. They're right here. And the ones in gray mean that I can't edit those because those are from a joined. I joined those to the pipeline product. Okay, so I can go in a little more detail on some of the other aspects of the pipeline hierarchy in another section. Please give me some feedback, and thank you for your time today.